all of this down now with Phil Robertson, who is the Deputy Director of Human Rights Watch's Asia Division, and he joins us now live from Indonesia's capital, Jakarta. Welcome to the programme, Phil. Tell us, what are the highlights of the report in terms of the Ukraine war?
Well, in terms of Ukraine, of course, we're dealing with crimes against humanity. We're dealing with an invasion by Russia into another sovereign state and the suffering that has caused. The Human Rights Council has played a leadership role, which we commend them for. But the bottom line is we're still facing major problems.
And another point, when you say in the report, when it says that it is no longer possible to rely on a small group of mostly global North governments to defend human rights. Tell us more about this and what it means.
Well, it means that, for instance, Indonesia, where I'm sitting here today, should take a leadership role in trying to address the human rights crisis in Myanmar. As we saw during the Human Rights Council discussion, or the effort to have a debate on the High Commissioner's report on Xinjiang, Turkey and Albania played a leading role in trying to propose that there be a debate about that report. When we look at what's happening in Afghanistan, countries around the world need to play a leading role in standing up to the Taliban and saying, that women should be allowed to go to school, that women should be allowed to work for nonprofit organizations, that they shouldn't suffer restrictions on their right to freedom of movement and freedom of livelihoods. These are things that governments around the world can do, and it doesn't have to rely on a small group of states, whether they be in North America or Europe, who have consistently said that they support human rights. The reality is that there is a number of things that governments around the world, whether they be in Latin America, Africa, Middle East, or elsewhere, can do to stand up for human rights. And that's what we're encouraging, that human rights has to be for all, but it has to be done by all. It has to have all the governments weighing in, and not just waiting for some governments to stand up and say something.
Indeed. And I just want to take you back to a point that was made about the war in Ukraine. Human Rights Watch said the West could have acted against Russia before its February 2022 invasion of Ukraine. That's a very bold claim. Do you think, Phil, that this war could have been avoided?
Well, it's hard to say whether it could have been avoided or not, but what's quite clear is that there has been more than a decade of declining respect for human rights in Russia, where the repression and the restriction of civil society in Russia has been pronounced, where media freedom has been destroyed by Vladimir Putin and the government. And so it makes it much more difficult for instance, Russian people to stand up now and say, we don't want this war. We don't think that going to war against Ukraine is the right way to go. There are consequences for a lack of accountability. And that is what we're seeing, that when you see governments getting away with rights abuses, they think they can get away with more rights abuses. And in Vladimir Putin's case, it's quite clear that he has constricted civil and political liberties to such an extent that he is unchallenged within Russia. And so he thought that, I can just go to war in Ukraine and, do whatever I need to do to take control of that territory, regardless of what rights abuses are incurred, and no one will say anything. And, that is the kind of outcome that impunity allowed to exist results in.
Phil Robertson, great to have your analysis on your annual report. Thank you very much indeed for making time for us. Phil Robertson, Human Rights Watch's Asia Division Director, Deputy Director. Thank you.